Whoa, guys, so AIPAC, the American-Israeli Political Action Conference, was this week, which for those of you who are unfamiliar, the AIPAC conference is basically like the Super Bowl for the Israel lobby. Historically, this has been a week where all the politicians in Washington march down to the conference hall or wherever they hold AIPAC, and they make a speech about how much they love Israel and how they're our greatest ally. It's interesting to watch Republicans in particular, who are typically known for not really giving a damn about countries that aren't America and thinking that everywhere else in the world is kind of trash, to see them go up on stage and talk about, how much they love Israel. It's quite rich. I mean, you would think that a Republican, for instance, would be embarrassed to speak that way about, France or Britain. I mean, those are those wimpy European countries. They certainly wouldn't talk that way about, Mexico or Brazil, because those are those dirty S-holes. But anyway, the AIPAC conference was under extra scrutiny this year, or at least you would expect it to be, because of all the attention brought to it by Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who essentially said that AIPAC pays off Washington politicians to back Israel on literally everything. She also said that many politicians seem to have a dual loyalty to both Israel and the U.S., which, frankly, after this week, seems to be an understatement. Now, you would think after all the scrutiny that they were, or the attention, not scrutiny, the AIPAC's never under scrutiny, but all the attention that they received over Ilhan Omar's comments, you'd think that they'd be on their best behavior and trying to make it look like it is completely crazy to assert that any U.S. politicians have any sort of dual loyalties. Yet Nancy Pelosi was nice enough just to come right out and say it. Nancy Pelosi, who condemned Ilhan Omar's comments about dual loyalty as being anti-Semitic, came out and said not only that every politician in Washington has shares some kind of dual loyalty and is loyal both to Israel and the U.S., they said that if Washington burns to the ground and that there's nothing left of this capital, that the U.S. politicians' loyalty to Israel will remain. Actually, she specifically said the U.S. aid to Israel will remain, meaning like even if we are we're broke and busted and we're poorer than Haiti, if the whole country burns down, if there's nothing left of the budget, whatever little money we have, we will still send to Israel. Now, how could you ask for a more perfect comment to prove Ilhan Omar's point? Because not only did Nancy Pelosi claim to speak for herself there, she was speaking for all of Washington. She essentially said that all of Washington is primarily loyal to Israel over America. After watching that clip, it is impossible for me to believe that there are honest people in Washington who actually thought Ilhan Omar's comments were anti-Semitic. I think of somebody like Dan Crenshaw, who's the first-term neocon darling, and of course a former Navy SEAL, I believe. He's the one with the eye patch, you may remember. I used to think of people like him as genuinely concerned about anti-Semitism and just thinking that, could interpret Ilhan Omar's comments as just being, Jew-hating. But after Nancy Pelosi came right out and said exactly what Ilhan Omar accused her of, I don't see how any honest person could feel that way about what Omar said, because it's so obviously true at this point. What more proof do you need than the Speaker of the House and one of the most important leaders of the Democratic Party over the last 20 years to come right out and say it about all of Washington? I mean, she may as well have come out right out and used the phrase Israel first. And the best part of the whole exchange, perhaps, was that she said that the U.S.'s aid to Israel is fundamental to our existence. Aid to a country founded in 1948 is fundamental to the existence of a country founded in 1776. I mean, I know there's a lot of the old joke about Democrats being unable to do math is overdone, but I mean, that's pretty egregious. Now, I know I've focused a lot on Pelosi, but believe it or not, she was not the only speaker there. There was a lot of other god-awful stuff that came out of this. Of course, Vice President Mike Pence spoke there on behalf of the White House, and Pence announced that, of course, Trump is recognizing Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights because Golan that is a inseparable organ of Israel. In fact, though, interestingly enough, he pointed out that Israel has controlled it for 52 years before the U.S. recognized it. Israel has now controlled the Golan Heights for longer than the Golan Heights were a part of Syria. And to be honest, the Golan issue has never really animated me very much. I think that all territorial borders are about power, no matter where they are. It's not like some borders are less legitimate than others. It's just like the U.S. border with Mexico. It's like, well, the U.S. border with Mexico used to be a lot further north, and now it's a lot further south. Is that, legitimate or illegitimate? Well, I mean, no. I mean, it's only about power. And it's the same thing like, well, then how did the Mexican border get so far north to begin with? Well, because of power, because Spain conquered it. But let's be completely clear. If this was any country other than Israel, the U.S. would not have recognized annexation over the Golan Heights or any other area. I mean, hell, the U.S. wouldn't even allow Serbia to assert sovereignty over Kosovo. And Kosovo was a part of Serbia. And the U.S. certainly didn't allow Russia to annex the Crimean Peninsula or the Donbass region of the Ukraine. All of these annexations are considered illegal by the U.S. Because, of course, they were not done by their greatest ally. Now, the last speaker I'm going to talk about today was Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley, of course, you may remember, is sort of gearing up to run for president eventually. She's been groomed by the neocon establishment for quite a few years now. And, of course, now she's parked at the board of directors of Boeing. So it's always nice to see the defense contractors represented at AIPAC, because certainly it wouldn't hurt Boeing if the U.S. got involved in any wars on Israel's behalf. Certainly not. And, of course, as you'd expect, Nikki Haley called for the isolation of Iran, just like North Korea. And Iran, of course, is a problem for them because it's the only non-U.S. allied country in the Middle East. And, of course, if Iran was so rude, they went and built their country right in the middle of all those U.S. military bases that we've got spread out throughout the world. I mean, frankly, it is not our fault that they're getting in the way. I mean, we need bases there, and that's, we're just going to have to put them there, whether Iran wants them or not. Now, of course, I'm being facetious, but that's the attitude here, is that Iran is the threat to us because we've encircled it, I mean, Iran is in the same situation that people claim Israel's in. People say, okay, Israel's completely surrounded by Arab countries. Well, Iran is completely surrounded by U.S. military bases. But yeah, despite all the attention they've received, the AIPAC conference was pretty typical. Warmongering for war with Iran. Recognition of the Golan Heights is new and bold. And, of course, Pelosi pledging the U.S. government's continued loyalty to Israel, primarily, even if Washington burns to the ground as a result. If you folks found any of this video enlightening, I'd appreciate you clicking that like button and subscribing, because I do upload every day, and I hope to see you here tomorrow.